Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, thank you. It's great to be here. I was in town earlier this morning, actually, over at the university. The University of Florida is now the 5th highest rated public university in the country. Pretty good. Now, if you can only cap the week off by beating Alabama this Sunday, then everything would be good in the world. But we'll see. That's a tall order. I want to thank Attorney General Moody, Chief Financial Officer Jimmy Petronis, Congresswoman Kat Kamak, Senator Keith Perry, and Representatives Clemens and Brannon for being here. We also have a number of folks joining us today, folks who are work for the city of Gainesville as well as Orange County in Central Florida. We have Darius Friend, City of Gainesville. Christine Dam, City of Gainesville. Jonathan Sissio, Gainesville Fire Rescue. Who I happened to meet a couple months ago when folks from this area were down there responding to the Surfside Tower collapse. And you had guys from this area down there doing great work, dangerous work. And then Maria Bernard, a firefighter from Orange County Fire Rescue. So I want to thank them. We're here today to make it very clear that we are going to stand for the men and women who are serving us. We are going to protect Florida jobs. We are not going to let people be fired because of a vaccine mandate. And you'll hear from some of the folks here, but you have people who've worked for police, who've worked for fire. They've worked the whole time. While a lot of these politicians were on Zoom and not going out or doing anything, these folks were there protecting us day in and day out. And so you don't just cast aside people who've been serving faithfully over this issue, over what's basically a personal choice on their individual health. And so we cannot let these folks be cast aside. We cannot allow their jobs to be destroyed, and their families and livelihoods potentially to be destroyed as well. And we've seen places like City of Gainesville, some other places around the state that have basically said, we are going to fire you unless you take a vaccine. And these first responders in particular have been exposed to all kinds of, many of them have already had COVID, okay? Let's just be honest. They have had COVID, they've recovered, and most of them, well, the ones that have recovered have very strong immunity. That's very clear from every study that's been done. Fortunately, the state of Florida passed a law this most recent legislative session, SB 2006, that did a lot of different things. It prevented private businesses from requiring proof of vaccination to just do normal things like go to a movie or go to a restaurant, vaccine passports, but that also applied to government agencies. And so if a government agency in the state of Florida forces a vaccine as a condition to employment, that violates Florida law, and you will face a $5,000 fine for every single violation. And so if you look at places here in Alachua County, like the city of Gainesville, I mean, that's millions and millions of dollars potentially in fines. Orange County, many, many more than that. At the end of the day, look, we did a lot in Florida to distribute access, and in December when the Pfizer and all this stuff came out, I said we would work very hard, we'd prioritize our seniors. that we'd make it available for all but mandatory for none. And that's been the policy that we've had from the beginning. And so I think it's an important issue with these mandates, and we're going to hear from some folks, and then I'll also talk about the Biden mandate as well, which is even more problematic. But you know, it raises important questions. I think, or even go beyond this. If you can have people wear these uniforms in police and fire, and obviously there's other very important jobs that folks are here doing, and they're always the ones on the front lines, they're always the ones that have to sacrifice, and you just throw them out like they're chopped liver, that is just fundamentally wrong, okay? And we're not going to let that happen. We're going to protect these jobs. We're going to protect these people's families. We're going to protect their livelihoods. And Ashley Moody is going to speak in a minute, but she filed an amicus brief in support of the employees who are seeking legal protection against the mandates that have come down from the city. And then, of course, the state government, you know, we will certainly move to impose the fines as the law requires when we see people that are denied access like this. So we have folks here who are being put in a very difficult situation. And I'd also point out, you know, you go back 6 months, everyone admitted it would be wrong to fire someone over this. Like, nobody was saying that this would be something that should be coerced. Everyone agreed, from Fauci on down, that this is something that should be provided, but it should ultimately be someone's individual choice to make in consultation with their physician. So now we're in a situation where you're going to have thousands and thousands of people could be losing their jobs, not because they haven't performed well. In fact, many of them performed heroically, but simply because of a very intrusive and I think illegal policy that's being imposed in different parts of the state and is now attempted to be imposed across the United States. So we have Darius Friend here. He's eligible to retire in 1.5 years. Now he's facing termination. He could lose his pension, but he believes that that this is a matter of principle, so he's been willing to stand up. And so here's Darius.
All right, thank you. So I don't have a speech, and forgive me for sweating. I was out there on the road trying to get all you great people in here to see the governor, so thank you for coming out today. So like the governor said, I've been with the city since 1999. I'm about 1.5 years out from retirement, and for me, it's not about the vaccine, it's about mandatory vaccination. No one should tell you what to put in your body. I choose what goes in my body. Of course, I eat hamburgers and French fries, but that's my choice of what I put in. So there are people out there that choose to eat non-GMO food, or they are vegetarians, or they don't want to eat foods that were grown with pesticide and herbicide. No one should force those people to eat meat or vegetables that were grown with pesticide or herbicide. The vaccine changes your RNA, so for me, that's a problem. So I'm here with you folks. We don't want to have the vaccine. It's about our freedom and liberty. It's not about the vaccine. They're taking away our freedom and liberty little by little. They're using the vaccine for cover. Last year, they took away our religious rights. They are not defending our freedom of speech. And this is just one way to take us to the next step. So thank you for coming out today, and thank you, Governor.
Christine Dam has worked for the city of Gainesville for the last 10 years. She is a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, Semper Fi. She has 4 children. Both her and her husband work full-time, and she's in a position now where, you know, she will lose her job potentially based off this mandate. So, Christine.
Thank you, sir. We are a 3-generation household. My elderly father lives with us. We have 4 amazing children. Sadly, we lost my mother last year, not to COVID, I hold a master's degree. My husband is a Gator. I have worked for the city of Gainesville for the past 10 years. Citizens of the city of Gainesville and residents of the state of Florida should not be given mandates which require them to either lose their job or their freedom to make their own informed medical decisions. I do not believe it is anybody's business if the citizen next to you is or is not vaccinated. The majority of the citizens of the city of Gainesville do not support this mandate. The majority of the city employees do not support this mandate. My body, my choice, my business. Every person I know who applied for a religious or medical exemption has had it denied by the city. The Pope has said that if the people want to take the vaccine, he thinks it is morally okay if it is voluntary. That is a far cry from demanding every Catholic blindly take the vaccine. As far as I'm aware, the city has never required any vaccine, not flu shots, not anything, and then required employees to furnish proof of those medical procedures to be kept on file, to be offered up to anybody who wants to see what your vaccination status is. Floridians have the right to autonomy of their bodies under the Florida Constitution. My body, my choice. Nothing should require me to say or share what that choice is with my employer or with my fellow coworkers unless I choose to. My health status does immediately affect my children. If I am sick, they suffer. If I am dead, they suffer. If I am disabled, they suffer. If I lose my job, who is paying my rent? My husband needs a healthy partner to help raise our children. My father needs a daughter willing to help him as he closes in on his final chapters of life. My body, my choice, no one else's business. I am the only adult female family member who's able to be with my children at this time. They lost their grandmother who lived with us for their entire lives last year. I will not put my children through the possibility of losing another maternal figure in their lives. I love my children far too much. My family means everything to me. My body, my choice. City workers are the people who show up to help the citizens of Gainesville when they are in most need, regardless of the color of their skin or their religion or their socioeconomic status or sexual orientation or vaccination status. If you need help, the people employed by the city of Gainesville will come help you, as they always have. We are smart, educated, and easily employable individuals, many of whom have standing job offers but are waiting to see what happens here, many of whom have already left at the city's detriment. We just want to do our jobs. We want to show up and do our jobs, to make medical decisions without our employer dictating to us what to do, to not be required to share our medical decisions with our employer or openly with other employees. We are your neighbors. We are just like you. We live or work in the city of Gainesville, and we love Gainesville, and we love Florida. My body, my choice, no one else's business. I will not comply.
We also have Jonathan Sissio here. He's a Lieutenant Tech Rescue Specialist and Paramedic with the Gainesville Fire Rescue, also a member of one of our urban search and rescue task forces, and was deployed down to Surfside a couple months ago when other USAR teams throughout Florida were assisting our South Florida teams in what was a very, very difficult mission. He has 10 children, 5 of his own and 5 foster children, and he's been with Gainesville Fire Rescue for 16 years. He expects to be fired, unfortunately, but he's going to come up here and tell his experience.
Hello, thank you for coming out, and thank you to the governor for the leadership and his guidance to this event. My name is John Sissio. I'm a Lieutenant Search and Rescue Specialist and Paramedic for the city of Gainesville. I'm here with my beautiful wife and best friend somewhere, and our 10 children. Like you said, we do have 5 biological children. We adopted 4 siblings that after we fostered for a few years, and we're currently also fostering a little 8-month-old baby girl. I've been with the city for 16 years and have been able to go on many search and rescue missions. More recently, one to the Bahamas after Dorian struck. And that was a tough one, and just recently, like the governor said, to Surfside, where I got to meet him as he came out to support the event. These missions were accomplished next to other dedicated and selfless coworkers. We do and see things that many don't have to, and I pray never will. Many of us would just say that's part of our job, but the commission has been proud and very happy to put us out there as the face of their good works. I would like to take a minute and talk about doing the right thing. Doing the right thing, I was raised always do the right thing no matter if it's tough or not. And for frontline workers like us and our law enforcement friends and our GRU friends, the right thing for us was to continue to be out there and be answering calls for help, alleviating pain and suffering, keep our neighborhoods and our streets safe, and our friends at GRU to keep the utilities on, power, gas, and water, so folks that could stay home would be able to do it. Due to our calling, we were out there serving while they were doing that. It's great for them, but that was not the right thing for us. The right thing for us was to continue to serve through all this unknown and new virus. That was back when we were being told that the death rate was exponentially higher than it actually is. So through all that time, we served on. But now we're being told that we don't know what's right for us. And we cannot make our own personal health choices. We have 4 commissioners that sat behind a Zoom screen, as he mentioned earlier, and now they're telling us about it. We know. We've been there. We've been out there. Hundreds of us have had COVID and recovered, gaining natural antibodies. Many of us have immunity by exposure, and many still have gotten the vaccine. We are not anti-vaccine. We are anti-mandate. Due to our unique home situation and our large crew of kiddos, we outgrew our house we've been in. So my son and I, along with the help from some firefighter brothers, we just built a new house. And we were moving into it the very same week that we found out that a lot of us would get fired for not taking the vaccine. And it's just an interesting time. There is, we feel betrayed and used. While we were heroes and selfless not long ago, now we're selfish. And they'll let us go. There's an absurd amount of virtue signaling going on that we be careful about. We need to stand up and fight. There is science and studies that are either ignored or twisted to fit their agenda. Already been mentioned, those that stand up and cry, my body, my choice, where are they at now? They're silent. So, friends, do not be fooled into thinking you're the problem. Do not be fooled into thinking that you're crazy or extreme for wanting to make your own health choices. That is your choice, and you're not the problem. Let's stand for what's right, stand the fight. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Jonathan. I think he points out that these mandates, this is not about science. Because if it was about science, you would recognize the infection-conferred immunity that people like Jonathan has. Israel did a study. They said it was much, much more protective than the Pfizer vaccine was. Cleveland Clinic did a study, same thing. Every single credible study always shows that it provides good protection. And so that's just the reality. So I don't support mandates at all. But if you're doing mandate based off this, if you're really following science, you would acknowledge this natural immunity, and instead they ignore it and force somebody who already has protection to take a medical treatment they may not like. And so it's really about using government power, control to mandate much more than it is about the underlying medical issues that are involved. And I think that is the perfect example of why. If you do not acknowledge that, you are not following science. Okay, we have Maria Bernard, who is a firefighter for Orange County. Her husband has worked in public safety. They are subject to this upcoming vaccine mandate and could lose all their income and their ability to support their 2 children. Both her and her husband have had COVID and have natural immunity, and so she's going to come up and share what she's been through dealing with these mandates.
Good morning, and thank you, Governor DeSantis, for allowing me this opportunity. Thank you all that are here today willing to listen and show your support. I've been employed with Orange County Fire Rescue as a firefighter-paramedic for 17 years. My husband is also a firefighter and has 24 years of service with Orange County. I have always wanted to serve people and be of help to others, which is what drove me to this career. On July 28th, my husband and I found out the mayor of Orange County decided to impose a mandatory vaccine requirement for all 8,000 plus Orange County non-union and union employees. The current deadline for compliance is September 30th, or employees face termination. There were so many unanswered questions. The biggest question is why? Why is our freedom to choose What we do with our body no longer a human right. My husband and I have spent weeks trying to figure out a logical reason for this mandate. In doing so, the magnitude of what we will suffer truly hit us. If this mandate continues, not only will we lose our freedom of choice, but we will lose our jobs and our livelihood. My husband and I have been productive members of society since we began working as teenagers. We want to keep our jobs. We want to remain productive. We want to serve our Orange County citizens. We want to continue supporting our families, being able to feed our children, maintain our health care, avoid foreclosing on our home, and secure our retirement. No one should be forced to have to choose between their beliefs and their bodily autonomy or their job, and risk losing everything that they ever worked for in life to be left with no way to survive. If the reasoning behind this mandate is to help employees and protect employees, then why are we being forced into a fate that will be far worse than contracting and recovering from COVID? As the governor stated, my husband and I both had COVID. We fared well, we recovered, we got back to work. Also try to consider the cost associated with losing a workforce that has years and decades of training. It would take years to replace. Who will be left to answer 911 calls and respond to the sick and the injured? Losing potentially hundreds of firefighters will directly affect the safety of our citizens and our community. If this mandate is not stopped, it won't be just the unvaccinated that are affected. Soon the vaccinated will require boosters, and mandates will have to be revisited possibly every 3 to 6 months, and firefighters and Orange County employees will possibly be faced with termination once again. Once we give up our rights to choose, where will it end? This is why we will fight this mandate and will fight for our freedoms. Lastly, Orange County Mayor recently stated at a televised coronavirus update, and I quote, "The goal that government has sometimes is to protect individuals even from themselves." This quote really stuck with me. Here I am, a firefighter and a paramedic of 17 years, treating patients and making life-saving decisions for them, being trusted with that responsibility. Yet this statement implies that I must be incompetent because I need the government to protect me from myself. If someone in this audience was to collapse right now, I would hope you would all have faith in knowing that any one of us firefighters that are sitting here next to you would immediately act without knowing if you are vaccinated or unvaccinated. We would put our skill sets and years of knowledge to work and do everything possible to save your life. If we can make those decisions, then I can assure you we know how to protect ourselves and those that we serve. We know what is right for our bodies. We know how to weigh the risk versus the benefits for ourselves and do not need the overreach of government that is being imposed, not only on us, but employees across the state of Florida and the entire U.S. Thank you.
You know, Maria also raised a good point about these mandates, how it's really a rolling mandate potentially because you don't know with these booster shots. You know, Biden's administration came out and said we're going to do boosters on a specific day, but it had not been studied by the FDA. Actually, the two top officials resigned because they felt that this was Can you imagine if Trump had unilaterally set a date for FDA without there having underlying data? I mean, the corporate press would have a meltdown. I mean, it would be wall-to-wall hysteria about him perverting science and not following experts or whatever. And look, I have no knowledge because I've not seen any data about these booster shots, but it could be in a situation where, 6 months from now, if Fauci says get one, you just have to do it? Are they going to fire you then at that point? Are they going to fire you a year from now? And so it gets into all these really problematic things. I also think you got to look to see what are we doing here in terms of the Biden vaccine mandate. This is not constitutional what he's doing. Everyone in his administration for 9 months said they don't have the ability to do this, that shouldn't be mandated, and that includes Fauci has said that in the past. They've always said that. So they're issuing this mandate for private sector employees, but also for all federal employees, but they're exempting the post office. They're exempting members of Congress and members of Congress's staffs. So how does that work? Can someone explain the science to me behind exempting? First of all, I don't think the post office should be forced either. But if you're going to do a mandate and you say you're following science and you exempt a major part of the federal workforce, and then you exempt Congress and you exempt the staff of Congress. You know, when I was in Congress, I actually proposed the 28th Amendment. Congress shouldn't make any law that doesn't apply to them and their staff. So those glaring exemptions, so if you're somebody who's work, again, I don't think postal should be forced, don't get me wrong, but Biden thinks everyone should be forced, except you deliver mail, somehow that's fine. But if you're somebody, a nurse who's been working in the ICU for a private hospital for a year and a half treating COVID patients and likely has already had COVID, then somehow you're going to get fired unless you follow the mandate. How does that make sense at all? It doesn't. This is all political. It's all about using government, and it's wrong. Also think about, what have we been talking about for so long about the hospitals? It has never been a lack of beds, even though that's what they said at the beginning. It's you have very short staff sometimes, and it's very hard to get nurses. There's a shortage. They have contract nurses come in. There's all these different things. Every single hospital, that's like the number one thing they will say. Well, how is this going to help that problem? Are you going to fire all these nurses who have been treating COVID patients or been working all this time? And again, most of them, many of them, have already likely had COVID and recovered and do have natural immunity. So it ends up taking issues with the health system and probably exacerbating it dramatically. It's also, you start talking about all the critical fire, you start talking about some of these things, you lose 10, 15% of those workforces. That is going to have a huge impact on public safety. You talk about other critical industries delivering food, a lot of these people that, just do the Zoom, they get people deliver them food or whatnot. Well, who do you think does that? What about truckers? What about all these other things? So this would actually have a hugely negative impact on people's jobs, but it would affect people who are vaccinated and just living their lives, because you would absolutely see key things in our society disrupted, and that is just not right. So we are fighting back against the Biden mandate as well, and we're working through different things that we're going to be doing in the state of Florida. But suffice it to say, nobody should lose their job over this issue. We have to protect people's jobs. We understand what's on the line. We understand people are raising families. We understand they have bills to pay. And the last thing you should want to do is plunge people into destitution, potentially, who've been faithfully serving and working in a variety of capacities throughout this whole time. So these mandates are overreaches, and they will be very destructive for a lot of really, really good people. And so we're on board to fight back, both in terms of any of the government with our law being applied and the fines, but then anything involving the private, we're going to be working to provide protections for people, because people should not face a choice of losing their job. And one of the people that are helping us with that is our Attorney General, Ashley Moody. She did file a brief in the case with the Gainesville. And she is here to be able to offer some words as well. So, floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, and it was truly an honor to hear from some of you who have really risked it all to stand up for what you believe is so important to you and your families. And at the very end of the day, that is your ability to earn a living to support your families. This is not about whether or not someone should strongly consider the vaccine, and I think that was put so eloquently. Many of our Florida officials have said, please strongly consider the vaccine with your personal circumstances, your history, your work circumstances. This is about, very simply, how much power do our government officials have when we have never given them that power to do something like this. Now, we've seen a lot of egregious examples where politicians across our country thought they had a lot more power than they actually did, locking people in their homes, keeping them from participating in religious ceremonies and worship. unacceptable. They did not have the power. Courts agreed with that. And now you have city officials saying they're going to fire employees if they don't take a vaccine. It is unlawful. It is directly contradicting Florida law. Look, I'm the wife of a law enforcement officer, a career law enforcement officer. I saw firsthand what these folks did when COVID first hit. No one was vaccinated. They're rushing in, trying to help people, putting their lives on the line. It is unconscionable that we would trust these folks to decide and throw themselves in front of a bullet for the safety of other people, but we won't trust them to make a decision for their own safety. Unconscionable. As you know, in Florida and around the nation, we're facing a shortage in recruitment and retention of law enforcement folks, and there are many reasons for that. Could be the rhetoric going around about that noble profession. Many reasons. This does not help and will not help. If this goes through and folks, first responders are fired, it will dangerously affect the staffing of law enforcement, which will directly affect the safety of Florida communities. And thank you for being here today and say, absolutely not. Governor DeSantis has been touring the state saying, I've looked at the numbers. We've got to do something to help these staffing shortages. We're going to do bonus payments to bring law enforcement into Florida. We're going to offer help in educating them and training them to make sure we have the best trained law enforcement in the nation. We're going to do all of this to recruit and retain. And now the city officials are going to unlawfully come in and jeopardize all that this governor is working to do. I'm here today to tell you, as your Attorney General, I am standing up for the over 200 employees that have risked their jobs and they've bravely filed suit against their city saying, you will not fire us for making our own personal medical decisions. On behalf of you and over the 200 employees of Gainesville that have filed suit, you now have the Attorney General in the state of Florida in your corner. We'll be making those arguments and defending you guys and standing with you all along the way. Thank you so much.
Okay, we also have our Chief Financial Officer with us here, Jimmy Petronas.
Thank you, Governor. First off, I got to be the state fire marshal of the state, so I get to see some of the best in our sacrifices of our first responders. But first off, let's do this. If you're a first responder, or more importantly, a spouse of a first responder, raise your hand. That's you too. Raise your hands. Give these guys a round of applause. Let me remind you, these are the folks that work on Valentine's Day, on anniversaries, on birthdays, on Christmas, on Thanksgiving. You name it, they're working 24/7, 365. And just like she said, I'm going to show up at your house when 911 is dialed, whether you got COVID or not. Governor DeSantis recognizes this. Earlier this year, he championed an effort to bring $1,000 home to every one of those first responders and their families. And believe me, they deserve it. So from the bottom of my heart, Governor DeSantis, thank you so much for your leadership. Now, Governor DeSantis couldn't have done that if it wasn't for these little group of legislators over here standing behind him. So anyway, Keith Perry, Chuck Brandon, Chuck Clemens, thank you for your leadership. And General Moody, my God, you know, the only thing General Moody doesn't have on is her orange and blue right now. She is super passionate on behalf of what she does for the state of Florida, but she's super passionate what she does for the citizens of the state. She fights against the bureaucrats in Washington every single day. Y'all give it up for the general. Now, no one understands COVID better than our first responders. Over 90% of the 38,000 firefighters and EMTs we have in the state are also trained paramedics. They're the tip of the spear when it comes to dealing with any of this. Look, I got my vaccine, but I ain't gonna support no damn mandate, okay? I'm gonna remind you, these mandates are the same people that brought us Obamacare. So let's recognize this is nothing more than big government health care part 2.0. So now what happens? Are we gonna have some type of a panel of government bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. that's gonna weigh out which Americans get an exemption or don't get an exemption? And do we think that a bunch of bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. know what's better for us than our own doctor does? It's ridiculous. They're going to tell us, trust us. They're going to tell us it's going to be okay, that we'll control your health care and you won't get hurt. But these are the same people, again, like I said, that told us you could keep your doctor. And how did that work out for you? So look, they were dead wrong last time. They're dead wrong this time. And don't forget, the Biden player that's in the White House right now, I still can't say his name together in one sentence, I'm sorry. But he was there then and he is there now, and we can't afford them to be wrong on this issue. So, it's not easy leading. It's not easy leading. There's not a playbook that Governor DeSantis went and grabbed off the shelf and said, you know, if I do exactly what this book says, everything's going to turn out okay. It's tough. It's tough making decisions. It's tough leading. But, you know, I look around the room and I'm saying, all right, I'm going to find somebody here that's got one on there. Right over there's a little DeSantis 2024 T-shirt. So anyway, I got to tell you, I love my governor. He's doing an amazing job. Thank y'all for being here today. And don't forget about Kat. Kat does a great job. And she's one of those spouses also who has a first responder in her family. So anyway, God bless y'all all. Thank you all for being here.
Well, thanks, Jimmy, and thanks for all you did. He was down there with us at Surfside day in and day out, and we really appreciate everyone that responded to that. We also just had the anniversary of September 11th, 20th anniversary, and if you look at that day, our first responders in New York City going into those towers, many of them knew that they would never come out, ushering hundreds, if not thousands of people to safety and saving all those lives. These are people, when you have something like that happen, and that's obviously something above and beyond anything we see on a daily basis, but they're the ones that are there. They're the ones that are having to walk that line on behalf of everybody else at great danger to themselves, and it's just frustrating to see that not respected more. And when you threaten to take somebody's job away over this, you're not respecting the people that are working hard to keep us safe. That's just the end at the end of the day. And so, I appreciate what Jimmy said, although I will say, protecting people's jobs, standing up for first responders, that's like page 3 of the governor's manual. Like, if you can't do that, then honestly, you should probably. We also have, as Jimmy mentioned, we have Kat Kamak, a congresswoman from right here, who her husband is a firefighter, and she's going to come up and say a few things.
Now, as y'all know, I am your voice in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, but I'm also Nancy Pelosi's least favorite member of Congress. like a family reunion for me. So, as the wife of a first responder, my husband Matt, he's over here. As the wife to a very sexy firefighter, I know firsthand what goes into day in, day out of the first responder family. I watched all last year as our fire, law enforcement, nurses, linemen, everybody in our first responder family responded day in, day out, not asking, do you have COVID, not asking, are you vaccinated, but just doing their jobs. And so this is particularly close to home for me. You know, the brothers and sisters that are here with us today representing the fire department, police department, sheriff's office, GRU, you name it, this is family. This is very personal. We've had dinners together. We have celebrated birthdays. We have celebrated births, babies. We've mourned together for those that have fallen amongst us. We have served this community together, and so much more. But now some small-minded people with even smaller hearts want to tear us apart. They want to tell us that we are not good enough to serve the very community that we have laid so much on the line for. And to that, I say hell no. Now, as your federal representative, I'm used to dealing with overreach from elected officials and, the talking out of both sides of their mouth, but I have absolutely had enough. This isn't anti-vaccine. We stand here today as anti-mandate. Now, first, we heard from Biden that he wouldn't mandate the vaccines. Then we heard he would consider them. Then we heard that he would require them for all federal employees, minus members of Congress, minus the Postal Service. But then said contractors, private businesses with over 100 employees, you're on the hook. And that's just at the federal level. Now, at the state and local levels, governors, county, city level leaders, except not our governor. They have now begun mandating vaccines for their employees, and here in our own North Central Florida, our first responders and city employees are being forced to take the vaccine or forced out of their jobs. Well, that's BS. Now, I know too many here today, too many of our brothers and sisters that are being forced to make a decision that is a loss either way. I know too many who have spent the last year responding to COVID calls when no one was vaccinated. And now those same people who have responded over and over are being told that, again, they're not enough. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know where in the Constitution the government's powers over one's personal health decisions can be found. Maybe that's because there is no such power. Now, as your voice in Washington, D.C., I have long advocated for the right to do what is best for you and your family because the government has zero authority to mandate a vaccine for you. If you want a vaccine, we have made sure that it is readily available in your community. Our governor and his incredible team, our legislators, have fought for the monoclonal antibody sites everywhere across this state. But if you don't want the vaccine, because that is a discussion between you and your doctor, we are going to fight for your right to make your own decisions. To that end, I will use my power as a member of Congress to ensure that any locality that infringes upon an individual's personal medical choices will no longer receive federal funding. and to the private small businesses now pressed with another unconstitutional mandate directed at your employees, I will be introducing legislation to dismantle the authority given to OSHA and other federal agencies being used to enforce Biden's unconstitutional order. Now, finally, my team is working right now to ensure that HIPAA regulations are tightened, that your medical health records are your business, not the government's, and damn sure not some city commissioner's business. Now, we will not let tyrannical officials dictate life decisions of our citizens with unconstitutional mandates. Abusive government overreaches at all levels, be it federal, state, or local, are unconstitutional, and they will not stand up in court. To all those that we have on the front lines that continue to answer the call, thank you. Do not quit. We will fight. And go Gators.
Well, I think that the message is very clear. We just want what almost everyone said from December all the way until very recently, that this is not something that should be coerced onto people, that should be something that they have access to and can make that decision for themselves. And when we first got vaccines in Florida, we focused on elderly first, including nursing homes. And I remember going to the first nursing home. It was down in South Florida. We were the first state to do nursing homes. We had our own strike teams until the pharmacies were ready. And we went in. You had a lot of very elderly. Obviously, they're the most at risk from COVID who were in that condition. And a lot of them were so happy to have it. They were crying. It was very emotional. But, there were some that just did not want to take it. They did not think that it was something that was right for them. And so what are you going to do? Are you going to pin down some 80-year-old nursing home resident and force them to take it? They had whatever reason. I don't know what the reasons were, whether a doctor recommended, whether they had COVID before, what have you. And so it just shows that, and I also think that what they're doing is very harmful. If they honestly want more people to do this, they are causing a lot of people to dig in their heels. They're causing a lot of people to really question, and it's totally counterproductive. So we just believe that we have to protect people's jobs, that casting people aside over this issue is fundamentally wrong. These are people that have served this whole time. They've served us in a variety of capacities, and I just think it's wrong. So we're going to be helping out here with the government issue, with our authority that we have, but then also with the Biden mandate. It's beyond just a mandate. What they've been doing throughout all of COVID, they go back and find some statute from decades ago. They find some obscure regulation, and then they take that as a pretext to be able to do ridiculous, unforeseen expansions of government power. They shut down our cruise industry. We beat them in court on that and got that going. But that was the CDC just acting unilaterally. Congress never legislated that. They did an eviction moratorium through CDC. Congress never legislated that. And now you're looking back at some obscure OSHA rule that's involving toxic substances in the workplace, and you're acting like that would be pretext to potentially throw millions of Americans out of work over a respiratory virus. And so I think the fight with the Biden mandate is a real serious fight to defend the constitutional system. And, he is so dismissive of anybody that disagrees with him. You hear how he talks about governors as if they should just be cast aside out of the way. But I know that the Founding Fathers created a system. We're the United States of America. And they created a system where the president doesn't just get to boss people around. That is not the way our Constitution works. And governors like me are designed to be on the front lines of pushing back when the federal government, particularly a president, is overreaching. And so we're doing that. I actually think having a federal system makes sense because we're able to do things in Florida. I mean, look, We would do, if you didn't have a federal system, you could have California policies or New York policies. I tell you, I meet someone every day that's fleeing those areas to come to Florida. So people are able to make those decisions, but that's really the nature of it. And for him to be so dismissive and act like that anybody standing up for jobs in their state should just somehow get out of the way, it shows the arrogance of him, and it also shows how out of touch he is with the people of this country. So these jobs matter. These livelihoods matter. Their families matter, and they shouldn't be coerced out of a job through government power. So we're here, we're going to help, and I think we're going to end up ultimately being successful protecting thousands and thousands of jobs throughout the state of Florida. Thanks, everybody.